On day 47 of tracking every single dollar I spent, I had a panic attack in a Starbucks because I couldn't decide if my coffee was a necessity or entertainment. That sounds insane, right? But here's what nobody tells you about meticulous expense tracking. It doesn't just change your spending, it fundamentally rewires how your brain processes value, choice, and even your own identity. And the psychological fallout? Way more intense than I ever expected. Hey, I'm Alex Mercer, and welcome back to the Mind Ledger, where we explore the psychology behind our financial decisions. For 3 months, I documented every transaction, every impulse, every financial choice down to the penny. I expected to learn about my spending habits. What I got instead was an unwanted crash course in behavioral psychology, decision fatigue, and why our brains are absolutely terrible at handling constant financial awareness. Let's break down what happened. The rules were simple. Every dollar that left my possession had to be recorded in real time with a category, emotional state, and justification. Coffee, logged. Netflix subscription, logged. That random pack of gum at checkout? You better believe that was logged. I used a combination of apps and a physical journal because I wanted both the data and the visceral experience of writing it down. Week 1 felt empowering. I was finally taking control, being intentional, becoming that financially responsible adult we're all supposed to be. I caught subscriptions I'd forgotten about. $17 a month for a meditation app I hadn't opened in 6 months. I realized I was spending $43 weekly on lunches I barely enjoyed. The low-hanging fruit was everywhere, and I felt like a genius. But here's where it gets interesting. By week 2, something shifted. The tracking itself started consuming mental energy I hadn't budgeted for. And yeah, I see the irony there. Every purchase became a decision tree with branches I'd never noticed before. Before tracking, buying a coffee was one decision. Do I want coffee? After tracking, it became 5 decisions. Do I want coffee? Can I afford it? What category does this go in? How will I feel about this purchase tonight? What does this say about my self-control? Researchers have known for decades that decision fatigue is real. Every choice depletes a finite cognitive resource. Judges are more likely to grant parole at the beginning of the day than at the end. We make worse food choices after making lots of other decisions, but I'd never experienced it quite like this. By day 30, I was experiencing what I now call financial hypervigilance. My brain was constantly running a background process evaluating cost versus value. At a friend's birthday dinner, I couldn't focus on the conversation because I was mentally calculating whether splitting the appetizers represented good value and how I'd categorize my portion of the communal fries. This wasn't budgeting anymore, it was obsession. And here's the kicker, I wasn't even spending less. My total expenditure for month 1 compared to the 3 months prior, almost identical. The only difference was that now I was exhausted. I'd read about decision fatigue in books, I'd covered it in previous videos, but knowing about a cognitive bias and experiencing its full force are completely different things. Then came the identity crisis I mentioned. I started noticing that my purchase categories weren't just organizing my spending, they were forcing me to define who I was. When I bought a book, was I someone investing in education or someone wasting money on information I could get free from the library? When I ordered takeout, was I someone who valued convenience and work-life balance or someone with poor planning skills and weak discipline? Around week 7, I discovered something fascinating in my data. My emotional state column revealed that I made different financial decisions based not on logic, but on a predictable emotional cycle. Sunday evenings, restrictive, guilt-laden purchases. Wednesday afternoons, loose, justification-heavy spending. Friday mornings, reward-oriented purchases framed as deserved. I wasn't tracking my spending. I was documenting my emotional regulation strategies. Money wasn't just money. It was how I managed stress, celebrated wins, punished myself for perceived failures, and tried to control an uncontrollable world. Every latte wasn't caffeine. It was a tiny dopamine hit that said, "You're doing okay." Every declined purchase wasn't frugality. It was self-punishment disguised as discipline. This realization led me down a research rabbit hole. Behavioral economists like Dan Ariely have shown we're predictably irrational about money. We'll drive across town to save $5 on a $20 purchase, but won't drive the same distance to save $5 on a $1,000 purchase, even though it's the same $5. We feel differently about found money versus earned money, despite it having identical value. Our relationship with money is fundamentally emotional, not logical. But knowing this intellectually and seeing it mapped out in your own behavior, in your own handwriting, hits different. I was confronting the gap between who I thought I was and what my actual behavior revealed. Economists call this the intention-action gap. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance. I called it deeply uncomfortable. Around day 65, something clicked. I stopped trying to be perfect. I created what I called decision-free zones, spending categories with pre-allocated amounts where I wouldn't track individual purchases. $40 weekly for coffee and casual meals, $20 for impulse purchases. No justification needed, no emotional logging required, just spending within a boundary. The psychological relief was immediate and massive. I'd given myself permission to be human. The tracking continued, but it was now a tool instead of a judge. I wasn't documenting every decision. I was monitoring overall patterns with intentional blind spots. My stress levels dropped, my decision fatigue decreased. And here's the ironic part. My spending actually decreased by about 18% compared to my pre-experiment baseline. The real insight wasn't about money at all. It was about self-awareness versus self-surveillance. There's a critical difference between mindful attention and constant monitoring. One builds awareness, the other builds anxiety. We live in a culture that glorifies optimization, tracking, and data. Fitness trackers, food logs, expense apps, sleep monitors. But there's a point where tracking stops serving you and you start serving the tracking. So what's the takeaway? If you want to understand your spending, track it, but with boundaries. Do intensive tracking sprints, not perpetual monitoring. Track for insight, not judgment. Your spending patterns reveal your values, fears, and coping mechanisms. That information is valuable, but the process of obtaining it has a psychological cost that nobody talks about. The experiment taught me that financial wellness isn't about perfect control. It's about conscious choice within your actual human limitations. It's about systems that work with your psychology, not against it. And sometimes the most financially responsible thing you can do is stop tracking long enough to remember why you wanted money in the first place. Which, spoiler alert, usually isn't to fill out better spreadsheets. If this video made you rethink your own relationship with money tracking, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Drop a comment below telling me, do you track your spending? Has it ever become obsessive? What systems actually work for you? I read every comment, and your experiences help shape future videos. Quick reminder, this is not financial advice. I'm sharing my personal experience and psychological observations. For personalized financial guidance, please consult with a qualified financial advisor. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.